Sydney Vizard for Rebel News here in downtown Calgary. Now, you might have heard that the G7 is coming up. It's going to be held in Kananaskis this year. That's taking place in Alberta, and there's going to be a lot of events taking place in Calgary because that's the closest major city to this G7 summit. Now, there's going to be a lot of interesting players, but before Rebel News could even bring you a report from Kananaskis, we had to go through a legal battle just to be there. We just recently got our media accreditations. I'm going to have to blur that for security reasons, as they've requested. But it was a battle simply for Rebel News to attend this very important event. And to find out more about that, you can go to letusreport.com. See the details behind the affidavit, the emergency hearing that we requested from the federal courts so that Mark Carney's Liberal government would allow us to simply attend this event. Lo and behold, the Liberal government caved. They decided that they were going to wait until the last minute to accredit us or to deny us accreditation so that the courts wouldn't have enough time to actually deal with the matter. But turns out the courts did have time, and as soon as that hearing was scheduled, the Liberal Mark Carney government decided to give us our accreditation. They called us abruptly in the evening to say, oh, sorry, our systems are down, but you've been accredited.
Our systems are currently down, but I wanted to let you know that you've been accredited for the G7 in Kananaskis.
Nonetheless, I can't say whether or not their systems were actually down, but I can say that they were cognizant of the fact that we were trying to get accreditation and that we were suing them.
And we thought we would have to sue. So I guess if you could send me an email, and then I'd be happy to call off the lawyers.
Okay, I will let my superiors know.
On to the G7 itself. This year, it's being hosted by Canada, which means that Prime Minister Mark Carney is the one setting the agenda for this event. Perhaps this agenda is part of the reason why Prime Minister Carney didn't want Rebel News at this event, because clearly anybody who can see this schedule sees that there's a misalignment between the global desires of the globalists, or the elitists, as Mark Carney described himself.
People will charge me as being elitist or globalist, to use that term, which is, that's exactly, it happens to be exactly what we need.
And those everyday Canadians, such the prime example being that it is in Alberta. Prime Minister Mark Carney refuses to deliver for our resource economy, causing separation sentiments to rise in the province following his election as Prime Minister. Most notably, President Donald Trump will be in attendance, along with a variety of politicians, prime ministers, presidents, what have you, from around the world. Aside from that, the world leaders are going to be locked up in a secure zone set up by the RCMP with a mountain of reservists from the armed forces helping them in that pursuit.
In that controlled access zone, the Canadian forces will be assisting the RCMP in securing essentially the wilderness. And for the purpose of that assistance, they're actually considered peace officers.
This area is going to be completely locked down. This is the area that we were not going to be allowed in if we did not get our accreditation. Everyone else is going to be protesting. The B-tier politicians, let's call them, in comparison to the prime focus G7 members. They're all going to be in Calgary. And in Calgary, there are 3 designated protest sites set up. Now, hear me out. A designated protest site. The RCMP have preemptively kettled demonstrators against the G7 or during the G7 who want to protest at that time. They've preemptively boxed them into little zones within the city. And the big concern there is that what happens when they hit the streets? What happens when these protesters decide they don't want to be cooped up with a bunch of other protesters with a bunch of different causes, and they decide to relocate through the city using our streets and our sidewalks? This is the area in which the conflict might arise between demonstrators and in law enforcement. Here's a quick peek at the designated demonstration zones here in Calgary.
Our expectation during the summit is that groups will come out to demonstrate, and we expect that and we support that. As long as it's done in a manner that's lawful, peaceful, and safe. We have designated 3 zones which we believe that can facilitate lawful, peaceful, and safe demonstrations.
Here is Calgary Municipal Plaza. This is set to be the main protest site according to the RCMP. This and one other location just up the street here are the main ones, and then there's a third that's further by the airport. They even have a little screen that they're going to set up in Kananaskis, so people that protest here at this designated zone, protest zone that is, will have their voices heard miles and miles away in Kananaskis for the politicians and bureaucrats that actually want to look at the screen.
We're going to encourage people to go to those dedicated DDZ zones, the 2 of which in Calgary, be in Enoch Park and the City Hall proper. We'll have a live stream back to the SMO summit proper. So again, a great opportunity for people to come to those safe zones to then have your voices heard and be seen by these summits.
And behind us, we have East Victoria Park, the second allocated demonstration zone. We're now at the Edward H. Laborde viewing area at the Calgary Airport. This is designated as what's supposed to be a backup protest site in case the first two don't work out.
Other designated demonstration zones, such as the Edward H. Laborde viewing area at the Calgary International Airport, may be identified based on emerging and operational needs.
Maybe those who protest here will hope that the delegates can see their protest signs from the planes flying into the airport, or they'll pray perhaps that the delegation might go through the highway that is just behind us here, although this is a bit of a B-tier protest site, as you might get some visibility on the highway. You're definitely not going to be getting some visibility from the plane windows. And we're here at the Fairmont Palliser Hotel in downtown Calgary, one of the many luxurious hotels that these elites from around the world are going to be resting at. There's going to be security around these areas, but like we saw with Justin Trudeau when he was the Prime Minister and sometimes staying at this hotel, he would take the back exits. He wouldn't come through the front area so that people who were protesting him wouldn't actually be able to engage. When it comes to the secure zone set up by the RCMP around the Kananaskis summit, we weren't sure whether or not we were going to get in, as you found out. And that's why I took a little early trip there, just to see how the scenery was going to look beyond the wall before the wall was constructed. Here's a quick peek at that. Now, right now, I'm standing at the helipad. This is where many of the world leaders are going to be flying in, probably from the Calgary International Airport directly here. And then they have a little short drive over to the hotel where many of them are going to be staying at. Some leaders might choose to drive, but like we saw during the Davos World Economic Forum meeting, a lot of these people that are on the higher echelons of society, let's call it, they're more than likely going to be taking the most expensive, environmentally speaking, routes and travel to get to these prestigious locations, which means that helicopters, private jets, planes, all that fun jazz is going to be in town, along with very heavily armed security vehicles. They've even developed what looks like a security fence around the hotel. Now, this is clearly a recent installation. You can still see some of the equipment set up over there and everything like that. It looks like they might have a pole set up so that they can put security cameras on the perimeter. And on the other side there is a cliff. So, not necessarily needing a fence for that section. But as you can see, if you pan the camera to my right here, you'll see that this goes all the way down and I believe completely around at least a certain part of the Kananaskis Hotel. I am in Kananaskis, Alberta, at the hotel where the G7 will be meeting this year in roughly just over a month from now. It's going to be very exciting times, and especially considering the relationship between Canada and the United States, one of our biggest friends, neighbors, and allies, who we've recently kind of given a cold shoulder to. They'll be here. Trump will be here in Alberta, and that's why we came here for a little quick preview to see what it looks like on the ground before they decide to set up a mass zone around this area with heavy security protection. I'm actually in one of the conference rooms that should be used for these G7 meetings. This is a larger one, so it's probably going to be less intimate, the engagements that happen here. But this hotel is going to be a hotspot for a few days at least in June in this year in Alberta for what is expected to be a major geopolitical event. So certainly heavily fortified, and this whole event comes at a cost for Canadians. Aside from that, there is some stuff happening in Banff as well, the third location for events. And there's going to be the International Media Hub. That's where the mainstream media, the government-funded media with their government propaganda are going to be camped out in some very luxurious hotels. And from there, they're not even going to engage with the protesters in Calgary. They're going to get a shuttle bus directly to Kananaskis. Along with that, there is going to be another designated protest site in Banff, but this one is going to be a little farther away from everything else. Now, in terms of protesting and violence that might ensue, whether it be from the protesters or from police enforcement, being a Calgary reporter, I can show you exactly how the Calgary police have handled protests that they deem unwanted, let's have it, in the years previous here in Calgary.
Roots to the road!
That's it for this report. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to be the most important thing to pay attention to during this G7, and stay updated on the events that are happening through our coverage at g7reports.com. For Rebel News, I'm Sydney Fazard. The only reason we're able to report on the Kananaskis Summit, the G7 Summit here in Canada this year, is because of you, our generous viewers, through letusreport.com. We had to hire a legal team to file the paperwork ASAP to get this done because the federal government tried to wait to the very last second to keep us out of the event. But we were able to do it, and it was, again, all thanks to your generous donors at letusreport.com. And if you can, we have to still cover the legal fees. We're waiting for the bill. So if you can, it really does help us out. And it is only thanks to you, not any funding from the federal government.